Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for the workshop on housing for seniors. As we wait for others to come in, I will wait about a minute or two to get everybody situated. We have quite a few people who have registered in, and so we'll just wait for about 6:02 maybe to get started. We'll first go over some information regarding our agency, also some housekeeping to get everybody started. So we'll start at 6:02. And that way we could cover a lot of ground today. I know our speakers are very excited to share the information they have. They have packed a lot of information for today for you all. And so we want to make sure that all of you get all that information, all the resources you need for regarding housing for seniors. Okay, I guess it's 6:02 right now. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for Housing for Seniors. We currently have three speakers today that are coming from different agencies all over the city to assist with regards to this topic. I am from Home San Francisco. I'm the manager of rental programs here. Together with me, we do have our panel of great presenters here. We have Ashley Peterson. They're from the Open House. Caitlin Wilson, who's from Legal Assistance to the Elderly. And in the moment, I think we'll have Chris Calandrilio, who will be coming in at the end of this training as well or workshop to be able to talk about their services at Episcopal Community Services. So anyway, without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started with some housekeeping information. So with regards to this workshop, please note that this is actually a recorded workshop. And the purpose of this is to make sure that this workshop can be accessible to you and other people in the future who may want to learn a little bit more about housing for seniors. So we would encourage, because of the amount of information that we're gathering and also the amount of people that are in our workshop today, we want to encourage everybody to kindly keep yourself on mute. We'll be entertaining all questions and answers at the end of this presentation. The if you do have any questions, kindly please feel free to use the chat. So if you go to the bottom of your screen, there should be a number of little buttons and icons there. There should be something that looks like conversations with the three dots. Just click on that one and leave your question there, and anybody from our panelists can either answer it while we're going through it or actually at the end of this presentation. And then, of course, if you are experiencing any technical difficulties, you can either send me a chat or go email info@homesanfrancisco.org for further assistance with regards to any sound or video issues that you may be experiencing. Okay, okay, let's move ahead. So we also want to make sure that this presentation is accessible to you. As such, we want to make sure that you could access the closed captioning that's available through this feature. To enable closed captioning, there are two ways that are indicated here. One is for the computer. So if you have a computer, as I mentioned, you could go to that bottom rather of your screen, maybe at the top of your screen, which we could usually call the control panel. And then if you see anything that says CC or actually show captions, that's where you need to go. If you don't see it, click on the three dots and you should be able to see something that says show captions. So you could put this in any language, basically of your choosing. So that's how you're going to enable that. If you have a cell phone or a tablet, you also have access to that. It's a little bit different. What you're going to do is that you're also going to look for the buttons. You might need to swipe like through the screens until you reach that part where you can see the same icons. And then you're going to look for the CC again and look for captions. And then this is different. This is like when you do your iPhone, you just show captions, the button, click that until it's green. And so, of course, you can choose your language. So now we've discussed that. So I want to talk a little bit more about Home San Francisco. I am from Home San Francisco. Home San Francisco is a resource hub that provides connections for renters, homeowners, home buyers, or anybody who's seeking any type of assistance with regards to financial services or financial information. We actually have a network of different agencies, housing counseling agencies. We have service rental service providers, home service providers, and different groups basically that come together as a network to be able to provide those resources to people in the community. If you have questions about how to rent, how to buy, how to keep my home, and what services are available for seniors, like this particular workshop, this is what we do. Home San Francisco does that. If you need referrals to counseling services, this is also what we do. Now, in the screen that you're seeing right now, you're seeing five different agencies. Outside of being a network and a resource hub, we do have five-member agencies that comprise Home San Francisco. The five-member agencies are Asian Inc., Balance, we have Meta, which is Mission Economic Development Agency, the San Francisco LGBT Center, and of course, the San Francisco Housing Development Corporation. Although we only have five-member agencies that provide home ownership assistance, home buyership assistance, and other assistance through HUD certified counseling services. That doesn't limit us because, as I said, we are a network of different agencies where we connect with different groups like Open House, Legal Assistance for the Elderly, and Episcopal Community Services, just to make sure that we are actually making sure that all these resources are within reach for all of you. So now that being said, I guess I've said too much. I want to turn it over now to one of our prime presenters, Ashley. Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you so much, Raquel. Can everybody hear me okay? Awesome. Okay. Like Raquel said, my name is Aisling Peterson. I manage the Housing and Resource Program at Open House. I'm going to take us through a very, very condensed version, essentially, of our affordable housing workshop at Open House, with a highlight, I think, on some of the key questions that I see a lot from seniors about the affordable housing search in San Francisco. Before I tell you a bit about that, though, I do want to tell you just a bit about where I'm coming from. So, my organization, Open House, has been around in San Francisco since 1998. So, in general, aside from housing, we're a nonprofit that focuses on providing community services and housing for LGBT seniors and adults with disabilities. Our housing program is open to anybody, but we also provide a variety of different support resources, community, and just fun activities for people who are a part of the LGBT community, in addition to being seniors or people with disabilities. So, if that applies to you, I really recommend that you come visit our offices. We're located at 65 Laguna Street, which is where Market Street meets with Guerrero. Or you can check out our website, which is located at openhousesf.org. Or you can call our office at 415-296-8995. For our housing program, more specifically, to get like hands-on support with any of the resources or information I'm about to talk about, some of the main ways to get support from us are either to schedule an appointment. Some of those are available through a calendar on our website at openhousesf.org/support-services. Or you can come to our drop-in hours. We're going to have those actually tomorrow, Wednesday at 65 Laguna from 1 to 3 in the afternoon. We would usually have them on Thursdays, but our offices are closed this Thursday. A bit about our program. The way that we work is really to help folks on a one-on-one basis, either by appointment or during our drop-in hours. We'll help you figure out what you're eligible for and kind of guide you with you in the driver's seat through the process of searching and applying for affordable housing. That's not a fast process and it's not necessarily easy. We don't have the power to directly place or refer people into housing, and so it's not an immediate process. We're also not an agency that can submit applications on someone's behalf. But if you've been looking for a housing counselor maybe to help kind of guide you through this process, we might be able to support you. So I'd recommend checking out our website is a good first start to learn a little bit more, or come and visit us. Okay. So I want to tell you about affordable housing generally, but I think a good place to start is really that the term affordable housing overall, especially when it comes to senior housing, is really an umbrella term. So I want to give you some other words to use when you're calling agencies and saying, I need help finding affordable housing. There's a couple words that I think might be more helpful to frame your search. I think two phrases that are really helpful to know is the difference between subsidized housing and non-subsidized housing. I think when most seniors are coming to us at open house looking for affordable housing, what they mean and are hoping for is subsidized housing. This is housing where the rent that you pay when you move in is tailored to your household. So when you move in, it's usually about 30% of your household's income. I will say subsidized housing is pretty few and far between in San Francisco these days. There's not as much of it as the other kind of affordable housing, which is much more common, non-subsidized housing. That's where it's rent that's much lower than what the market rate is for rent these days in San Francisco, but you're still paying a dollar sign amount of rent that is like a flat rate, usually based on the size of the apartment in a given building. So for non-subsidized housing, what types of housing you might encounter, you may have heard of these types. So things like inclusionary below market rate. The inclusionary there refers to it being like market rate housing that includes a number of affordable apartments. That's different from 100% affordable housing, quote unquote. I wish that meant that it was like totally affordable, whoever wants to live there. That's more of like a professional term distinction. Inclusionary is a building that's mostly market rate, but includes some affordable housing, which is different from 100% affordable, which means the whole entire building is 100% affordable apartments. You might have also heard of SROs or single room occupancies. Those are also typically non-subsidized housing. So much reduced rent from what's on the market these days, but it's still a dollar amount that might go up year over year, depending on, rent increases. This is going to be the most common type of affordable housing out there and will be most of what you see on affordable housing websites like Dahlia, which I'll talk about a little later. Because non-subsidized housing, you're still expected to pay kind of a specific dollar amount for rent. It is important to know like what the minimum income requirement is for that particular type of apartment, or housing opportunity. So my recommendation, if you're looking at those kinds of opportunities, is to first check the minimum income requirements and then look at things like age requirements, your accessibility needs, location and amenities, and other things. It also might take a while between when you apply, and then if and when you hear back from a property, but that's kind of always going to be true with affordable housing. And then for subsidized housing, this is going to look a little bit different. So this is where rent is tailored to an individual household. Some programs you might have heard of that are subsidized typically are funded by the federal government, the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So things like Section 8 vouchers, or project-based, which is based on like a building having funds through Section 8, or things like HOPWA or public housing. Occasionally, you'll see buildings on Dahlia that are funded this way. The main way you'll know the difference is instead of a dollar sign listed with the rent amount, the rent will be listed as 30% of income. Um, Most of the time, these opportunities will be listed as a waiting list. So it's great because are offering rent that's extremely affordable. It's tailored to your income. The downside is that frequently they're in higher demand, which means they might be on a wait list basis. So pros and cons depending on the type. For this kind of housing, usually there's no minimum income requirement. So if you're someone with very, very low income, usually this is an accessible option for you. And you can right away jump to looking at, am I old enough for this property? Does it meet my accessibility needs? Things like that can be considered earlier. But because you might be more likely to apply to a wait list, it's important to keep track of what you're applying to, and respond if the waitlist is asking, hey, are you still interested? Is your phone number up to date? Things like that. So this is kind of just a status update for you for some subsidized housing options. For the most part in San Francisco, the Housing Authority keeps track of these. So to keep an eye on most housing opportunities that are subsidized, I recommend checking out the Housing Authority's website, sfha.org. I get asked a lot, how old do you have to be for senior housing? The answer most of the time is 62 plus. Occasionally, you'll see a 55 plus building these days, but that's an older requirement. The other question I get asked a lot is, I'm not 62 yet, but I have a disability. And the tough answer is that unless a property is both disability and senior housing, the age requirement is going to always be true. So typically the age requirement is going to have to stand as it is. So if you've got more questions about that, we can always talk it through in a one-on-one appointment or drop-ins. Okay, let's talk about how you actually apply and start looking, because I think that's an important step. So one of the main tools you're going to use is Dahlia. To get there, you go to housing.sfgov.org. This is a pre-application lottery system that helps the city of San Francisco figure out who actually gets to move in what order to our affordable housing. So the way that I found that works best to use Dahlia, first step is to create an account using an email and a password. You can also sign up for email alerts so you find out when there's a particular unit size, when there's a new apartment opportunity available on Dahlia. Based on what you're eligible for, you can check on those listings and then apply. The only kind of documentation you have to provide for Dahlia applications is a preference document, and I'll tell you a bit about that in a minute. Otherwise, Dahlia is very, very simple. Applications should usually take about 5 minutes or less if you're pretty computer savvy. And they're pretty simple because it's just a pre-application to figure out the order of who actually gets to move into this housing. So they just want your name, basic contact info, who else is in your household, who's your roommates, your aunts, your uncles, your dog. They want to know a guesstimate of your income. And then the last piece is your preference document. This is typically true for the live or work in San Francisco preference, which gives everyone who already lives or works in the city a leg up in the lottery. My note here is that preferences, I like to think of them as kind of like a boarding group for an airline. Because affordable housing is a public service, this is kind of how San Francisco creates priority and structure in kind of this otherwise random process of a lottery. So this allows the city to prioritize and give a kind of extra lift up to groups of people that really need that extra support for accessing housing. Like I said, one of the biggest groups is people who are already living and working in the city. They get priority over folks who are trying to come into San Francisco newly. So this is what Dahlia looks like. She's blue and beautiful. Raquel, if you want to click through, I think there's 3 circles on this page. Yeah. So just to note, housing.sfgov.org is the address. Sign up today. You can get email alerts, and then sign in is where you would click to actually log into your account or make one for the first time. And then rent is where you'd actually go to check out what listings are available on Dahlia at that point in time. Dahlia is not something you apply for once and you're done. It's really kind of an ongoing process or a habit. Every time there's a new building or opportunity, there's a Dahlia application that goes with it. So this is an example of what it looks like to see housing opportunities on Dahlia. This is from last week. So you can see that these are opportunities that would be considered non-subsidized. You can tell that because there's a dollar sign and then a clear kind of written amount for how much the rent would be at these properties. There's a little orange banner on the Carlin Valencia location that tells you that this is a senior building. I think, Raquel, if you click through here, I actually circled it. This is a rare property actually where the age requirement is 55 plus. And so you can also see here too, there's usually a bit of a gap between when the application deadline occurs and when the lottery takes place. So there's usually a bit of a gap between when that happens. Also, if you're someone who needs information around like accessibility features in an apartment, or something like square footage is important to you, or parking, usually if you scroll down towards the bottom of a Dahlia listing, there's a section called features where most of that information is listed. I think it's super helpful, and it's really, really good information to know before you put in your application. And this is where you would actually upload your preference document to make sure you get that extra leg up in the lottery. The steps are see if you qualify, check the box to claim it, and then upload the document. And then for the type of document that they require, there's a lot of specifications. You can find more information about it on MoCD's website. If you've got questions about it, I don't want to go into too much detail because we don't have a ton of time. But if you have questions about what kind of document will work for the live or work preference, you can come on down at drop-in hours or give us a call at open house and we can talk through it with you. And then you'll see a number that looks something like that number at the top to know you've successfully completed a lottery application. But that's actually not the number that tells you how you quote unquote did in the lottery. That's actually the number in the blue box underneath. And that number will come a couple of weeks after you've put in your lottery application. That blue box, the closer your number is to 1, that's essentially the higher up you are in line, aka the closer you are to getting a housing opportunity.
Excuse me, are there slides that you're presenting? Because I don't see them. You're describing certain things. I don't see what you're describing.
Oh, I see. I'm so sorry about that. We are
Yeah,
sharing some slides. Are other
yeah,
folks able to see them? Okay, it looks like some other folks are able to see the slides.
yes.
I believe we'll be sharing them afterwards as well. So I
Okay,
think we can share them via email as well. I
okay,
apologize about that,
okay,
Anna.
pardon me, sorry.
Oh no, that's okay. Thank you for letting us know. I'm sorry about that. Thank you for telling us where you're at. I appreciate it. Okay, I think that's it on this one, Raquel. In case you're outside of San Francisco, or if you are not just looking within San Francisco for your housing search, there's this new website called Doorway that actually searches a whole bunch of counties. Okay, I'm going to read this off. It feels like a tongue twister. It covers Alameda, Contra Costa, Marin, Napa, San Mateo, Santa Clara, Solano, and Sonoma counties. Ah, okay, so it'll cover all of those in like one fell swoop. So if you're someone who's kind of looking at the Bay Area generally, Doorway is a great way to kind of search a lot of ground all at once for your affordable housing search. And then additionally, if you're just looking at San Francisco, but you want to know what else you can do besides Dahlia, Open House works with the Department of Disability and Aging Services to make a list of essentially everything else we can find in San Francisco that's not on Dahlia. And that goes in our monthly housing list. So we send that out by email on the first of each month. And in the slides, there's some more information about how you can get connected to that to make sure that you get those updates once a month. We also will use that list to send any really juicy and exciting housing opportunities out to people when we hear about them, such as like Section 8. Okay, and then further, the next couple slides also, one of the things I've learned in this work at Open House is that sometimes the solution is not always finding new housing, but finding ways for you to better age in place in your current housing. And sometimes things that can make that happen are not housing related, but resource related. So things like getting in-home support services to help with managing your care, or maybe getting some help with legal referrals to get reasonable accommodations made with your landlord. So I recommend contacting an aging and disability resource center to talk about resources that might help you with aging in place. Open House is an aging and disability resource center, so you can contact Jose Santa Maria on our team, or one of the 14 other ADRCs across San Francisco. They're trained to know about resources and to help you connect to them, to try and help you age more successfully or navigate living with disabilities more successfully. And then further, some additional resources for you. One I particularly want to highlight is this group called Rebuilding Together. They actually can provide, they've got a wait list, but they can provide some home repair and renovations, including installing things like grab bars in your home or apartment with your landlord's approval. So they can actually provide some of those things that will really help you stay in your apartment for a little bit longer if you've got a place you love and you just don't want to leave it. So I really recommend that. Plus, LAE's here, and you can give them a call for some legal support. They're pretty cool. Okay, I think that might be it for me, Raquel. Let me see. Yeah, thanks, y'all. Okay, I've taken up more than enough time. Let's see who else is here. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much, Ashling. So now we'll go to our speaker from Legal Assistance to the Elderly, and this will be Caitlin. So Caitlin, take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin Willison. I'm an attorney at Legal Assistance to the Elderly, also known as LAE. We offer legal assistance to seniors and adults with disabilities who live in San Francisco. You'll see here our address. We're at 1663 Mission Street, so not too far from where Ashling is over at Open House. And our phone number is 415-538-3333, and that is going to be the best way for you to contact us, and we'll talk more about when or how you should contact us in some future slides. So who is eligible? If you are a resident of San Francisco and you're over the age of 60, or you're over the age of 18 and living with a government verified disability, you qualify for our services. Government verified disability is what we're looking for is that you are on Social Security disability. So it's not short-term disability. It's not I broke my foot and I can't work for a week. This is a long-term disability that is recognized by the government in terms of your benefits. All of our services are free and confidential. We are attorneys. We do have social workers on staff, but at our core, it's in our name, legal assistants. We are attorneys who are here to help seniors. So we do not charge for our services, and all of our services are confidential within all of our staff. And we have lots of different funding resources. The Mayor's Office on Housing and Community Development, Department of Disability of Aging, and other funding through the State Bar. So we have lots of connections throughout the city and county of San Francisco. So our practice areas, we have quite a few practice areas. This presentation is focused on housing, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. But we also have attorneys who help with end of life planning. So that's if you're looking to do a trust, a will, an advanced healthcare directive, etc. We also have a financial elder abuse litigation team, as well as a foreclosure prevention team and a consumer debt defense team, our housing preservation and eviction defense team. And then we also have a healthcare and benefits advocacy team. So we have lots of different practice areas. I see that Trisha has a question saying, do you have to be a resident of San Francisco and over 60 and disabled? You have to be a resident of San Francisco and then either over 60 or disabled. So you do not have to be over 60 and disabled, but you have to be a resident of San Francisco, either over the age of 60 or living with a government identifiable disability. So these are our practice areas. If we do not have, if the legal issue you're looking for is outside of our area of expertise, we can certainly point you in the right direction, but these are the issues that we handle in-house, and all of our issues are going to be civil legal issues. We do not handle criminal cases. So if you're looking for advice on criminal issues, we are not the people to reach out to. So our intake process, what the intake process is how can you get help? So you have a legal issue, you're wondering how you access our services. We do have an intake screening process. We work on a capacity basis. So if we need to make sure that we're providing the best services to the clients that we have. So we will let you know if we have capacity to open a case with you and evaluate whether or not we will sign on as your attorneys. The best way to do this is to call our intake line, 415-538-3333. Our office is open Monday through Fridays, pending holidays and other things, from 9 to noon and 1 to 4. But again, because we work on a capacity, your best bet is to call us, because if you walk in and we're at capacity, we're not going to be able to help you. So if you're looking for help after this presentation, call us. If you need to walk in, you can do that, but calling is going to be your most efficient way of handling things. Once we do that initial intake with you, determine whether or not you qualify for our services, our various teams will evaluate your case and whether or not we have the capacity to take it on, or if we're the right fit for you. That intake process is a bit detailed, so it's going to take 15 or more minutes, and we're going to be asking you a lot of questions about your income, where you live, your legal issues. So you need to be prepared when doing that intake that you're in a confidential space and that you have the time, because we are going to be asking questions that are specific and may require some sensitive information for you to provide us. So one of our teams, this presentation and this group is focused a lot on aging in place, and one of our teams is the foreclosure prevention team. So if your home is at risk for foreclosure, we can potentially help. If you're behind on your property taxes or your mortgage, or if someone's trying to take, buy, or transfer your house, if you receive a notice of default from your bank, a notice of a trustee sale, these are all things that LAE can evaluate and potentially help you with. It's important that when you go to this intake, when you call us, that you have all of your mail, because a lot of those questions are going to be about what did you receive and when, how did you receive it? So when you are, even if you're thinking, okay, maybe my home is about to get foreclosed, or I'm going to call LAE, make sure that you have all your documentation together. And that's going to be a common thing that I'm going to talk you through with all of these legal issues, that we as lawyers can only help if we have all of the facts. And so it's important that you keep your facts organized, easy to access, so that way when we do speak with you, we have everything. So especially with foreclosures, a lot of this communication is going to be coming via US mail. So make sure that you're checking your mail regularly, organizing your mail, and you're keeping things safe if you can, and and you're computer savvy, scanning those things so that way you have electronic copies and hard copies for you to send the attorneys. So those are things to keep in mind if you're thinking about foreclosure. I am not a foreclosure prevention attorney, so I'm not going to be giving any detailed legal information about foreclosure prevention, but since this is a presentation about aging in place, we wanted to make sure that we highlighted this part of our practice. And if this is something that you're facing, feel free to get our intake line a call, and we can see if we have capacity to help you. So what I'm here to talk about, and what one of my areas of expertise, is evictions and housing preservation. Evictions are urgent cases, and so if you receive a summons and complaint, or what lawyers would call an unlawful detainer, or what in regular non-lawyer terms, an eviction, or you receive a sheriff's notice on your door, you need to contact us immediately. Eviction proceedings are what the court calls summary proceedings, which means they get faster timelines than your general court cases. So if you're thinking, oh, I've been in a court case before, it's going to be months before I'm in front of a judge. That is not how it works in evictions. These are fast-paced moving cases. And so the minute you get that sort of thing, you need to be evaluating your legal options. And if you qualify for our services, the best way to evaluate that here in the city and county of San Francisco is to give us a call. You can also call the Eviction Defense Collaborative. They are another organization. There are several organizations here in the city and county of San Francisco that provide what we call tenant right to counsel services. When you are a tenant in San Francisco, you have a right to an attorney. And so there are many organizations. The Eviction Defense Collaborative is what I would call the hub of the wheel. And then there are all these spokes that shoot out from it. So us, Legal Assistance to the Elderly is one. The AIDS Legal Referral Panel is there to assist people who are living with HIV. There's the Homeless Advocacy Project, Open Door Legal, and the Asian Law Caucus, as well as others that I'm sure that I'm forgetting. So our housing team helps preserve housing both when you get that eviction lawsuit, the summons and complaint, as well as if you're getting an unlawful rent increase, a denial of reasonable accommodation, or other housing issues. So we don't, though the bulk of our practice is evictions, we do offer, when we have capacity, services for these other things, such as illegal rent increases or denial of reasonable accommodations. And we'll talk more about some of that in the coming slides. But the most important thing to take from this slide is that if you get something related to an eviction, you need to call a lawyer immediately. So unlawful detainers or evictions. I'm not one to read off slides. These slides are going to be short and I'm going to be talking a lot. So if you have questions, put them in the chat and we'll try to get to them. There are three big buckets of evictions here in San Francisco, in the state of California and in San Francisco. The first is non-payment of rent. You're allegedly behind on your rent, you're unable to pay your rent, and your landlord is saying, you have to pay me money or you have to leave. The next is something that we would call a nuisance eviction. So this is something that the law says, okay, you've paid all your rent, but you still need to leave for, these specific reasons. Common ones that we see here in San Francisco for quote unquote nuisance would be if someone is having issues with collecting and cluttering, or if they have certain behaviors that are disrupting other folks. Landlords will call those nuisances and file eviction cases on those. And then the third is what we would call a no-fault eviction. So this is an eviction that happens not because you did anything wrong, but because the status of your building is changing. So though there is rent control and just cause protections in the city and county of San Francisco under the San Francisco rent ordinance, there are state laws that allow landlords to evict people for reasons that are of, quote, no fault of that person. So these are going to be when what we call an owner or a relative move in. If your landlord is saying, usually you get a new landlord who says, I've bought this building and I want to move in, or I want to move my mother in. That would be an owner or relative move in, depending on who's moving in. And the other one is an Ellis Act eviction. And this is an eviction which is saying this building is no longer going to be used for the purpose of a rental. These two types of evictions, these no fault and owner relative evictions, are very complicated. They are very intense when it comes to legal arguments, discovery, and those sorts of things. And so they are something that, even though your notices will say that you have a longer period of time, it might say you have 60 days before you need to leave. That doesn't mean that it's not as urgent as the other ones that say 3 days. That additional time is not a bonus. It is actually because these are very, very intense. There's a lot of litigating that happens in them. And so don't take that extended, quote unquote, extended notice as meaning this is not as urgent. It is equally as urgent. So what happens if you receive a summons and complaint? A summons and complaint is different than a notice. So a notice would be when your landlord posts the thing on the door that says you owe us $283 in rent. This is not yet a lawsuit, but it is getting very close. It is your landlord propping up everything in order for them to file a lawsuit. If you receive a summons, which is a formal lawsuit, someone comes and serves you with the lawsuit and it has a case number on it, that is a formal lawsuit. When you get either of these things, do not wait. And most importantly, do not rely on Google. San Francisco and the state of California have very specific laws when it comes to eviction cases. You may Google something and it may say, you're fine, don't worry about it, but that might have been for something in Sacramento or something in South Dakota. So though in this day and age, we are so eager to just quick pop it into Google, oh, I have a question, here's the answer. Housing law in San Francisco is highly specific. It is different in San Francisco than it is even in something as close as Oakland, or even something as close as South City has different laws than the city and county of San Francisco. So do not wait to call a lawyer, and please do not rely on Google. It is always unfortunate when folks call in and they've missed a timeline because they said Google said it was okay. which is why you need to call us. It's also important because if you do not respond, you can be evicted without your day in court. That's what we call a default. So if you forget to respond or you respond too late and your landlord's attorney goes to the court the minute they can, you can be evicted without your day in court. So though you had a right to an attorney, you may not have access to have your day in court. So again, these are not things to brush to the side or say, I'll deal with that tomorrow. These are things that, because they are quote unquote summary proceedings that move fast and have faster timelines, you need to be proactive. The other important thing, when you're thinking about evictions or receiving these eviction notices or getting summonses and complaints, is that you need to document everything so that your lawyer has evidence in the future. So this means paying your rent and making, if you have to pay by cash, making sure that you get a receipt, but preferably paying your rent with some way that there's going to be a paper trail, like a check. Make sure that you're paying your rent on time. Make sure that you're getting those receipts. And when you're paying your rent, stating which month you're paying. So if you're paying for July, writing, Ashling's rent, 100 McAllister, July 2025 rent. Because landlords can do creative things with accounting and say, oh, you were $5 behind last month, you paid us $1,000, and so now we're using $5 of that dollars to be the old rent, and so you're still $5 behind. And you're saying, well, I wrote you a check for $1,000, that's my rent. That's why it's important that you make these details, and it may sound annoying to put that in every month, and you may say, well, the check is dated for July 1st, of course it's my July rent. You still want to be doing those things so that way your lawyer can make the best arguments they can. And again, like we talked about with foreclosures and with any legal issue, as a lawyer telling you, documentation is key. Getting things in writing is key. So you may be having conversations with your landlord over the phone, or they may be showing up to your door and just talking to you. You want to memorialize those things in writing. So if your landlord calls you and tells you something important and it's not in writing, you should email your landlord and say, hello, landlord, we spoke on June 17th at 2:05 p.m. and you said this and I said that. So that way those things are in writing and they're memorialized, because if these cases get litigated down the road, we're not going off of he said, she said from 6 months ago. We then have a writing. So again, having documentation is always good for any legal case, but especially good for evictions because they move so fast and we don't have those long discovery timelines that you may have had if you were in a separate lawsuit. Maybe you had your own personal injury case and your lawyer had a year to do discovery and to make depositions and to do all those things. That is not how it works in eviction cases. And so it's important that you do that legwork from jump and get that documentation together. So like we talked about before, there are kind of two things here. There's a notice, which is not a lawsuit. You'll see in parentheses, yet. That notice may say that you either have to comply with what they're saying, so clean out your unit, pay the amount that they're asking you to pay, or vacate, move out. That's what the notice will say. A summons and complaint is a formal lawsuit filed with the Superior Court and served on you. That summons and complaint is, you have 10 days to respond to that. And if you don't respond, that's what we were talking about before. You may miss your day in court and get what we call a default judgment. The way that you count those days is going to be day one is the day after your service, and you don't count Saturdays, Sundays, or court holidays. I am not going to take any questions about do I have enough time to respond? Did I have enough time to respond? Because cases are different. I'm also, though I am an attorney, I am not your attorney. So if you have questions about timelines specific to your case, it's important that you call our intake line, because I unfortunately won't be able to entertain those questions here today. So the other big thing that we see is about fair housing and disability rights. This is something, reasonable accommodations, that Aisling had spoke about a little bit. A disability is a mental or physical impairment or disorder or condition that impacts one of your major life activities. A common misconception that addiction is a disability, though it is a disability from a human perspective under the law. Recovery is a disability, but current addiction without any recovery is not going to qualify for a reasonable accommodation. There are two things here. Reasonable accommodation is a change in the rules, policies, practices, or services that your landlord is providing, such as requesting large print for your documentation, having a later rent due date if you're on disability, or needing an emotional support animal. A modification is a change in the physical premises. So this is like grab bars in the bathroom or special alarms for the hearing impaired. When you're going through the reasonable accommodation process, your landlord has a right to verify your disability with a qualified medical professional, but that does not mean they get access to your medical records. The other important thing to remember is that you have to prove a nexus. So you can't just say, I'm disabled, therefore I get to do XYZ. You have to say, therefore I get to do XYZ because it impacts this specific disability. And the other thing to remember is that the reasonable accommodation process has at its core something called the interactive process, which is basically saying that both parties need to come together and meet in the middle somewhere. So be prepared when you're submitting reasonable accommodations, though we always hope you get exactly what you want when you ask for it, that your landlord, though they cannot flatly say no and we're not discussing this, you are going to have to come to the table and discuss things with them at some point in time. So be prepared to have that interactive process. And then finally, some other common questions. One very common question we get here in San Francisco is, what happens when my landlord sells my place? Do not move. Just because your landlord sells the place or the sign goes up in the front yard or you found the posting on Zillow, that does not mean that you have to move. You have a right to stay in San Francisco. Your new landlord also must tell you who to pay and how. It does, just because your place is sold does not mean that you automatically get a rent increase, though your landlord may often be allowed to provide you with a rent increase. You should also be on the lookout for important documents. Your current landlord or a real estate agent may ask you to fill out something called an estoppel certificate or something called a pre-buyout disclosure form. These are legal forms. You should be calling our office if you receive those to obtain advice on them, because if you fill them out improperly, you forget to fill them out, or you accidentally leave something out, that could be used against you. And then another common question that we get here is that my landlord is not making repairs. If you are covered by the rent ordinance in San Francisco, you can file something called a decrease in services petition with the rent board against your landlord. If that if you're not sure if your building is covered by the rent ordinance, give us a call and we can walk you through how to do that. You can also go to the rent board over on Van Ness and get that information as well. And if you're saying my landlord's not repairing this, I'm just going to repair it myself and deduct it from my rent, make sure that you're documenting that correctly. That is a legal procedure that requires certain things to happen in certain ways. So don't think that just because your landlord didn't fix the window, you can just go buy any window at Lowe's and then deduct it from your rent check. You have to do it a certain way. All of these things are common questions. If you have other questions that you're thinking, feel free to give us a call and do our intake process. So that's all for us, and we'll pass it on to Chris.
Hey everyone, I'm Chris Calandrillo. I'm the Chief Program Officer at ECS, Episcopal Community Services, and we're talking about supporting aging adults. It looks like we're running a little bit behind, so I'm going to go as quickly as I can and through this. ECS has been around for 40 years. We began as a shelter provider in the basement of Grace Cathedral in 1983. And we've been doing shelter and all kinds of stuff ever since. We have 23 different permanent supportive housing sites in our portfolio. Some of them are master lease, some of them we've built and we own. So we're also a housing developer. A few years ago, we launched, well, no, actually the Chefs program has been around for about more than 20 years. And our REACH program was launched a few years ago. These are workforce development programs. The Chefs program is a culinary training program, and REACH trains folks to enter the social service sector. So formerly homeless folks or currently homeless folks experiencing homelessness to enter the work that we do. What we learned is that people really want to give back, and with a little support, we can make that happen. We have healthy aging, behavioral health, and we also are the lead agency for adult coordinated entry in San Francisco, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. ECS over the past year served over more than 13,000 people. We have 1,419 older adults served by our healthy aging department. We have both a senior day program, a meals program, and we're an adult resource center, an aging resource center, which is an ADRC. Um, and all of those are accessible through, or you can contact them through our website. Um, we served over 1,400 people in interim housing last year. Our big hit is coordinated entry. We served over 8,000 people in coordinated entry last year. And I believe we have a slide on that I'll talk about. 163 people connected to behavioral health. 614 folks were served in our workforce development programs. That's Chefs and Reach, which I mentioned, and 3,200 people in our permanent housing programs. Assessing housing coordinated entry. So coordinated entry is a federally mandated process. It looks different in every community, but every community is responsible to have a coordinated entry program. And what it means is that people don't have to run around to every housing site to apply. This is specifically for folks experiencing homelessness. So coordinated entry provides a housing assessment, and that assessment determines if someone is eligible for subsidized housing in San Francisco or not. After that, folks go into a pool where they are um, prioritized based on their acuity of need. So we try and serve the most acute people first. So it's not a waiting list. It is based on acuity. Unfortunately, what we know is the longer people stay on the streets, the more acute they get. So there's a lot of competition for those prioritizations. So adult coordinated entry consists of two different activities. One is problem solving. So folks come into an access point. Our access point is at 123 10th Street. You can walk in, you get the housing assessment, and you get a conversation to see if there's any way to divert you from the homelessness response system and to help you resolve your own homelessness without having to enter a shelter or some other kind of program. We divert about 6% of the population that come through coordinated entry. The rest go on for assessment and hopefully placement. The other part of coordinated entry is housing navigation. So when people have been matched to housing, we help make sure they get there. We help make sure that they have all the documents they need when they get there. And all of that again starts at, excuse me, 123 10th Street. Excuse me. But you can see the numbers at the bottom. We assessed over 4,400 people last year for permanent supportive housing. And we'll move on. Senior homelessness at a glance. According to the latest PIT count, 10% of people experiencing homelessness were 55 to 64, and 5% were 65 or older in San Francisco. The senior population age 80 and older is expected to triple in the next 40 years. What we're actually seeing is an aging population of the folks living on the street, and our programs need to adapt to meet the needs of that population, and we're working hard to do that. In California, nearly half of all single homeless adults in California are age 50 or older. 41% of homeless adults had their first episode of homelessness after age 50. So when we're talking about homelessness and seniors, it's a huge consideration. What we know from local researchers like Mario Kuchel is that folks age faster when they're living on the street. So somebody that may be 50 and homeless and experiencing homelessness may actually present as somebody in their mid 60s or 70s with their health needs and other co-occurring needs. Then overview of ECS programs. Um, like I said, we do permanent supportive housing. We have sites that are dedicated to seniors. You can see a picture of one of them there. We also have sites dedicated to families and single adults. Our single adult housing sites tend to be roughly 50% seniors, even if they're not screened as seniors. So our healthy aging department works really hard with our housing programs to make sure that we're staying up on, how to recognize different signs of dementia, how to respond when folks are experiencing different needs as they age in place. We provide individualized case management, again, healthy aging programs like our senior center, and then referrals and system navigation. Ken and Kip Senior Center. I've said this a few times. It's our senior center. It's been going since 1994. It's for seniors 60 plus. We do drop-in center. We have a hot lunch every day. We also do takeaway lunches. We serve over 100 lunches every day. Um, Case management and computer lab and social activities. Gosh, our ladies love the karaoke. It's a big deal at the senior center. Um, and it's also we also have an aging and disability resource component for District 6, which is south of Market. Um, and I think that's what we do. Uh, 1066 Mission is a building that we built in partnership with Mercy Housing. And it houses seniors 55 and older. It's 103 units. Right next door to it is a single adult building. And between those two buildings, they're the largest supportive housing building in San Francisco to date. There are 256 units total. The Ramada Inn is a building that we're working on. We're remodeling the building. We're rehabbing the building. It was a home key purchase, so it was purchased through the state in partnership with by the county of San Mateo. It's in San Francisco, and I think it's going to be 45 units of senior housing for seniors experiencing homelessness. Both properties provide wraparound services, case management, behavioral health support, primary health care, and peer connection. Actually, 1066 Mission is the first building that we were able to build where we partnered with St. Anthony's Foundation to provide the medical services through their federally qualified health center. And that's been a really successful partnership for us. Really happy with it. And then Q&A. I got through it. 1 minute. Sorry if that was very fast. I've been on the freeway and I was a little bit revved up. So happy to take questions. I know that we save questions till the end, so I'm sure the other panelists will be happy to take questions as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. So the time is 6:59. I know we have published this at 7 p.m. So I wanted to check in with our presenters if you guys are okay to hang in there a bit to answer questions. Would that be great? Thank you so much for that. So we'll go ahead and do that. And for those though who need to be somewhere from our participants and attendees, we will be, as we mentioned, we will be recording this and we're also sharing the slides later on. Give us time to process it, but we'll be sending it to you as one of our participants. So anyway, we will go ahead. We will park all our questions. I want to make sure though that everybody has information regarding our upcoming Housing Fair and Help Center. The people that we have here today, actually, we do have a presence for agencies similar to the agencies that we have today. They will be part of our Housing Fair and Help Center. This is a free event, so I don't know if any of you have already registered. On the chat, I did put all the information, including the address, the Eventbrite link. If you haven't registered yet, it's running from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then we are basically, all you have to do is sign up. I have put the link there. There's going to be about 70 different agencies that are coming in and organizations, and that's just on the resource fair side. On the help center, if you want to get more one-on-one conversations going there, we have about like 15 to 16. We actually now have 16 as of 4 p.m. We have 16 different agencies that will be providing assistance, if you want a more one-on-one type of interaction. Legal assistance for the elderly does have representation there at that side as well. And then of course, now we're gonna go for those also, go ahead and for those who have questions, go ahead. I think I've seen a few questions have already been answered through the chat. To Brenda, it looks like we have quite a few that have already been answered. I do have one that seems to not have been answered, from Tamara. Did I say that correctly, or is it Tamara? It's for you, Chris. It's with regards to ECS. So it's asking about the caseworker. She's been working with ECS. And so is that okay if I hand that over to you, Chris?
I don't know
Yeah.
if he's still here. Sorry.
I'm here.
Tamara is correct.
Thank you, Tamara.
So hi, Tamara. You say I've been trying to
Okay.
get assistance since March. My first UCS caseworker went on medical leave. I'm sorry to hear that. And though I've contacted the supervisor and heard from a different caseworker, I seem to be have slipped through the cracks. I'm disabled senior and losing my housing at the end of the month. I'm going to put my email in the chat for you, Tamara.
Okay.
Please send me your contact information so I can make sure that someone is connecting with you and that you're not falling through the cracks.
All right. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Sure.
So we have a few questions have already been answered in the chat. Um, are there any questions that are maybe uh some of you are wanting to ask and may not have placed it on the chat? Just go ahead and keep your unmute yourself. We could also have you do that so we could get your answers. Ready? So we have one new message. Okay. For some of you that have answered the questions, anybody else who has questions? Okay. Our panels are very quick in the chat. I love that. Thank you so much. While others are still thinking about their questions, we want to encourage everybody. We want to hear what topics you want to learn about, and also what works for you. So, for those who, oh, okay, we have Rochelle. Is that correct? Go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question.
Hi, thank you so much, everybody, for this. If you're self-employed, it's harder when you're trying to figure things out. I'm 61 and I'll be 62 in October, but I lost my apartment. I've lived here and worked here for 40 years. But I have some disabilities, but they're not logged in. And long story short is when you're trying to fill out things, like who would be the person to help you in terms of, um, like when they ask what is your income and whatever, and it changes, right? It's kind of a flux thing, and a general, and it's like, how do you, okay, evaluation. Thank you, Raquel. I'm seeing that in the chat. So I think that's kind of that. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. That was
Oh
the
no,
whole.
go ahead and go ahead and complete your that was for everybody. So go ahead and complete your question so we
Okay,
could,
so
yeah.
well,
Sorry about
it's just like how to fill it out properly, like in each one, because everything is different that comes in. And I don't really understand how the big lottery, like, is there just one lottery or there's separate ones for different things, or your ranking is what happens in that big picture. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I think Rochelle, the I these are really, really good questions, and you're definitely not the only person who has had them. I think they'd probably be best addressed with like a housing counseling session. I would say overall, generally, when someone is self-employed, there's a process of going over like a profit and loss statement is typically how most properties are going to kind of assess your like income when it comes time to like actually apply to move into a property. So that's kind of one way that they'll look at your income. The other way is just like looking at an average of bank statements over time, looking at kind of like the funds that go in and the funds that go out, and kind of coming up with an average of like the monthly income gross that you see based on those bank statements. So those are kind of the two most common ways that properties will usually like look at your financial picture and come up with like a rough income bracket to kind of put you into the right categories for options in terms of housing. So really, I think the best way to know is to kind of look at your like individual financial documents and kind of do some math with a housing counselor to figure out kind of what range makes the most sense for you. I'm putting my email in the chat. If you want to reach out to us at Open House, we might be able to schedule some time with you. And anybody else who's on the call is welcome to reach out to me as well. We're a small team of 2 at Open House, so if we don't have any like capacity, I'll also reach out to Raquel. There's other housing counseling agencies that can also make appointments and help folks out as well, including other agencies that work with seniors too. So if we at Open House can't support you, I'll work with Raquel to find another agency that might be able to help you guys figure it out.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a lot to figure out on your own for sure.
And it's a whole thing. Yeah. I mean, it's a whole world this last year and a half of not having a home and
Oh,
kind of starting
absolutely.
at my age. I'm grateful to have a roof over my head, but yeah, seriously, it's coming to an end. And so, yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate this.
Somebody asked a question about how assets are counted. So the first, for most housing that's affordable in San Francisco, the first $150,000 of assets are typically going to be like waived or ignored for most affordable options in San Francisco. Rules are going to be different outside of San Francisco City and County. And then otherwise, I think it'll be kind of a case by case basis. I do have some resources in San Mateo County. Sydney, I can send you, we have a housing list in San Mateo that has some subsidized housing options.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
Any other questions from the group? Great questions. think we've covered everything, at least for the chat. So, okay, great. So on the chat, oh, perfect. So Raymond Chan, I noticed that Ashling has put on the chat resources in the Alameda County that you may be able to locate assistance.
Hi, sorry, I'm trying to text on the chat, but somehow it's not going through. So can I ask a question?
For sure, go ahead.
Sorry, I missed the first 20 minutes of this, but how old is considered senior to apply for below market housing?
Sure, yeah. So most of the time these days, senior housing is going to be 62 plus.
Okay.
Occasionally there will be buildings that are 55 and older, but it really depends on the property. So the majority will be 62 and older. On occasion, you might see 55 plus. You really have to kind of read the fine print for the property to know.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
But it's not 65 plus.
No, not 65.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, great. So it looks like we've answered everything on the chat.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
If there's still time. Um, I have been, since I turned 62, I have been getting on a lot of mailing lists. The only thing is I find low income housing to not be that low. I've been in well, I've had rent control for over 32 years. So it's going to be a real shock for me to go out there, even in low income housing. And I need to find out, I need to get on like Section 8 voucher, and I'm willing to move anywhere around the Bay Area to different counties. But I find it incredibly frustrating. They never let you know. You can't get on a mailing list. You have to really, and it's hard to even find, I find, anything about Section 8 or housing vouchers and when to get on those wait lists. Can you give me any tips about how to do that?
Um, the best information I can give you is that almost always there's going to be a housing authority that manages it, and that they're going to be the best folks to be following up with and finding for any given area. They're almost always going to be the ones that are managing and operating the wait lists when it comes to housing options. So I would be personally in your shoes searching for information about housing authorities for any geographic areas that you think might make sense for where you might move to, and contacting those places to ask about their waiting lists. But it's true, it's very disaggregated. There's not a lot of centralized information about when those wait lists open and close. Even us in San Francisco, it can be hard to get good information about when waitlists open and close in San Francisco. It's taken us by surprise sometimes when we've had waitlists open, and we're housing counselors. You would hope that we would find that out early and often to help people apply. So I know that there are websites out there that purportedly will help folks kind of get in the know, or will provide like alerts about like, all of these counties and all of these areas have open wait lists for Section 8 or have these openings in particular. In my experience, some of them can be pretty can lean towards like the scam kind of area, or will kind of fish for a lot of your personal information. I think in general, the best thing to do is to get familiar with the housing authorities in the areas that you would be comfortable living in, and to get familiar with their websites directly. I hope that
And
helps.
to check it like once, and would you suggest checking it like once a week or every 2 weeks?
Yeah, once a week or every two. I'm a little bit of a freak about housing, and so I check the San Francisco Housing Authority's website once a week. I'm probably one of their frequent flyers. But yeah, so like once every couple of weeks, I have like a little bookmark like folder of different housing authorities that I check on pretty frequently. So that's how I do it. So you might want to follow that way, or find a different method that works for you. Yeah. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much, all of you, for your information and support.
Yeah, thanks, Trisha.
Trisha. Thank you, Trisha. Ashling actually is perfect. Ashling was the one who actually told me about the housing authorities last waiting list before they sent me an email. So that's correct. I think we have enough time for at least one more question. Anna, would you like to ask your question?
It's not a question, it's so much a comment. I was just looking at the doorway portal. And that lady just asked a question. If you navigate to the doorway portal, um, you just put in like the counties and how much you can afford per month, and it will bring up a list. And there's also, you can put in your email and they will send you alerts of housing availability in different counties, Solano, Contra Costa, Alameda, etc. It's a great portal. Thank you for mentioning that. I didn't know about it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, it's cool. Before there was Doorway, it was kind of like a different version of Dahlia for all these different counties. So I'm really glad they kind of smushed it into one. It's really helpful. Saves us a lot of time with making our lists too. So yeah,
Yeah.
we're excited about it as well.
Thank you.
So much. So anyway, I think it's about 7:16. For those who have come in late, I just want to let you know that yes, we will be recording, we have recorded this video, so this will be available at our Home San Francisco YouTube channel, as well as we will be sending copies of the presentation. So don't worry, we'll send that through so you guys will have access, or all of you will have access to that information. Anyway, I just want to thank everybody who's in this presentation. We encourage all of you to actually give us a workshop evaluation link, especially if you loved our presenters. We want to continue to bring these types of presentations to you. There's a space there if you have suggestions of what other topics you want. We want to hear your feedback so we could bring viable information to all of you. So you could scan it or you could click on this link that we have. So for those who want to scan it, go ahead and do so right now. But thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Ashling. Thank you, Caitlin.